Joining us right now on Texans Radio, it's Texans General Manager Nick Caserio. Nick, great to see you.
Great to see you, fellas.
All right, let's dig into it here. The week before the Combine, coaching staff set now. We met with the assistants this week. Your thoughts on the staff now that it's been assembled?
Yeah, I'd say over the last 7 to 10 days, there's been a certain level of stability in the building. The staff's been put in place. We kind of were in high gear there right after Lovey was hired, and tried to really get the staff solidified even the end of that first week, and then we had a few that trickled over into following weeks. So I would say experienced staff, a lot of coaches that have been in the league in various capacities. I think you guys talked to Jacques yesterday, so former player, even though he hasn't been coaching but X number of years, at least in the NFL, has NFL experience. But experienced staff, a lot of energy, have seen a lot of different things, have been exposed to a lot of different systems, actually have some background in the systems that we're going to use. And I would say overall familiarity with people that they may have worked with at different points. So you look at Coach Warhop, his relationship with Lovey going back to Tampa Bay, and then even having an overlap with Pep at different points. So what we try to do is just try to add familiar faces so that each side of the ball felt comfortable with the group as we implement, maybe some new things and make some changes. So from that perspective, I think everybody's just excited to kind of get situated, kind of get started, and kind of get moving into the next phase of the offseason program.
For you, how much of a, whoo, boy, that's finally done, is that off your to-do list? Or is that just, got to do it, got to get it done, let's move to the next thing? Or is that a big thing to get off the checklist?
Yeah, it's part of the process. You still want to be thoughtful and just make sure you make the right decision. There were certain coaches that we earmarked and identified going into it. I'd say certainly Pep was involved in that. Obviously, he's offensive coordinator, and having people that he felt comfortable with so that he can disseminate the information to them, and then that information can get to the players. We were able to keep some of the coaches that were on their staff from last year as well, that we have a certain level of affinity for. So I think once the staff starts to work together, and I think you're seeing the group kind of meet collectively on a day-to-day basis, offensively, and then defensively, I'd say it's kind of a combination of youth plus experience. I think Lovey's experience overall kind of supersedes the defensive side of the ball, but a guy like Kenyon, who I would say is a little bit less experienced, but highly thought of and has a background with Lovey. So I think when you look at, especially on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of coaches that have either done some things systematically that are similar or have experience with Lovey or haven't played in the system. So hopefully that will all be beneficial as we start to work with the players.
Nick, what about the offense? How do you think it'll evolve from year one to year two with Davis at the controls? And I know you have a new coordinator in Pep, but he's been here, like you said. Ben McDaniels has been here, Danny Barrett, that kind of thing.
Yeah, realistically, offensively, it's just a matter of different things mean the same thing. So there's this translation period that you go through. Okay, we called this last year. Okay, we're going to call this a little bit differently. It might be the same type of concept. So it's kind of like learning a new language more than anything else. So you just have to familiarize yourself with what the language actually means, what that says, and then as a player, you have to take that input and say, okay, this is what I need to do on the play. The bottom line is it's about being able to execute plays at a fast rate and offensively move the ball and score points. That's not going to change. So however you do that, however you construct the offense, that's going to be important.
We're going to the Combine very, very soon. Didn't have a Combine last year. What's the main thing that you want to get accomplished, Nick, when you get to the Combine?
Really, the Combine's about information. Like if you were just boil it down to what is the Combine about, it's about information. So it's information about draft prospects, whether it's from a health standpoint, whether it's from a personal standpoint. It's sometimes a first introduction to that player on a personal level because the underclassmen, not all underclassmen will have attended an all-star game. There's a few that have declared that, they'll go down there and be part of the Senior Bowl more than anything else. So it's about getting information. So whether it's from players or, you're going to talk to different people throughout the league on other teams. So it's about information, agents. So there's a lot of people that are there. So you kind of have to sift through like good information, what information you're getting that's actually usable. It's no different than what we're trying to do during the fall with draft prospects. So when you go into a school, you talk to so-and-so, okay, is this source a good source? Is it an A source? Is it a B source? Are you really getting good information? Is it the right information? Or, it might just say, hey, let's do a deeper dive onto this piece of information that might be able to help us in creating an assessment of the player. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, I would say on a personal level, the workouts for me are a little bit overrated. I think, it doesn't mean they're not important, but they have this body of work that they've established over the course of their career. So it's important to the player. They spend a lot of time, resources, and train because they want to put a good product forward and make the best account of themselves as possible. But you just have to be careful about. We've seen many players who they test really well. Okay, does that testing translate over onto the field in terms of what you see in terms of the actual play speed, their strength, their explosiveness, those types of things. So I would say that's probably the main thing is just it's an information source, and what information you utilize and how you apply that to your process will be the most important thing for us.
How do the new coaches in the building help with the draft process? What kind of role do they have?
It's a good question. I would say just philosophically, we try to streamline as much as possible. So you don't want to just give them a full buffet of everything. Like, so here you go. Here's 60 players. Like, let's get some information. But maybe they've recruited a player. If you have coaches that were in college, maybe they were part of the recruiting process. So okay, they have a little bit more information relative to their background. So whether they recruited them, whether they coached them, whether they in the NFL were, I think this is more on the free agent front, but whether there's a player that worked with that particular coach and another team that might be a free agent. So you have resources in your building, so you might as well utilize the resources that you have. But as far as what we put on the actual coaches, we'll give them some players to evaluate. I think really the time that they're spending right now is allocating on the scheme and kind of going back through our cut-ups, seeing some of the things that we did last year for the new coaches, learning our players, how they play, what are their strengths, what do they see. Okay, and then they get that information to the coordinator and just make sure that we are in alignment in terms of our vision for the player. If we see a player differently, then let's have a discussion about it, whether or not it makes sense for that player moving forward to be a part of our program.
Given the timeline, the fact that Combine is coming up next week, kind of first week of March-ish, then the league year ends, and then you got free agency right after that. How does all that kind of fit together for you? You did say when you get to the Combine, a lot of information, whether it's about prospects or free agents. How does that kind of come together, Nick, that timeline for you that, hey, we got to talk to all these prospects, but then we got to turn around and be ready for the league year with free agency coming up?
You're really doing things concurrently. So just kind of going back, so from a timeline perspective, so as soon as we finished up with the coaching staff this past week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we kind of had our second round of draft meetings. So we're going through our draft analysis, our preparation, our vision for the player, how we see the player in our system. But in conjunction with that, our pro staff is evaluating kind of the free agent board, if you will.
Right.
So we've actually met over the last couple of days. We've gone in, we've kind of made an evaluation of the board. So you're kind of taking all the information and it all kind of fits together. So you just kind of deal with the time at the present. So with the Combine, all right, you're focused on, you have X number of formal interviews, you get 45 formal interviews. Okay, make sure that you know who those players are. Obviously, you hope that you've watched those players, and then there's something specific you're going to ask them about. Okay, so then when you're not doing that, you might be having a discussion with agents about, okay, here's my list of free agents. Okay, and ahead of time whether there's a player that you might be interested in. So you're taking that kind of pool of information and kind of putting that over here. And then as soon as the Combine is over, there's the pro day component that'll come into play. So you want to allocate your resources and your staff accordingly. But by the same token, all right, we're going to really kind of pool our efforts into a focus group, if you will, from a free agent standpoint, and try to get more information. And the market's going to dictate, in a lot of cases, like whether or not a player is even going to be available for your team, or he's going to cost a certain level. So if you pay X number for this player here, then there's 3 or 4 other players you're probably going to lose. So how do we balance all that off? Ultimately, that's kind of be my responsibility. But you're relying on a lot of different people to just kind of set the table and then just try to put an action plan in place that we think makes sense, understanding it could change at the drop of a hat.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.